Was in a lot of pain and a lot of fear. And that's when the doctors told my husband that
when 34-year-old nurse Jenna Miles collapsed suddenly during a quiet morning in her Denver apartment. Doctors called it a cardiac arrest, but Jenna calls it something else entirely, the journey beyond the veil of death. What she saw during those 9 minutes flatline would shatter everything she thought she knew about reality, the soul, and existence itself. Her stunning near-death experience didn't just change her, it left her with a message too urgent to ignore. And now she's finally ready to share it. Hold on a minute, if you have not subscribed to our channel, do well to subscribe, like, comment, and share videos of this channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell.
My name is Jenna Miles. I'm 37 years old, and I live in Asheville, North Carolina. I work as a hospice nurse, which means I spend most of my days walking people through their final hours on Earth. You'd think doing that every day would make me more spiritual, or at least more in tune with what comes next. But truthfully, I had grown distant from anything like that. I was raised Christian, Southern Baptist to be exact. Sunday school, youth group, vacation Bible school, I did it all. But over the years, life pulled me in 100 directions. Work, bills, heartbreak, stress. Somewhere along the way, I stopped praying. I stopped reading the Bible. I still believed in God, or at least I told myself I did. But it was a cold belief, distant, not something I lived by anymore. More like a label I kept in the drawer with my old church bulletins. My days were predictable, even if they were emotionally heavy. I'd wake up early, throw on my scrubs, make a rushed cup of coffee, and head out to care for patients. Most of them didn't have long left, and I did my best to bring them comfort. I think I was good at that part. I could hold a hand and listen. But at night, when I got home, I felt hollow. I'd zone out to Netflix or scroll my phone for hours just to quiet the noise in my head. I told myself I was coping, but really I was avoiding it. It was an ordinary Thursday when everything changed. I had just finished a shift with a particularly emotional case, an elderly woman named Marianne, who passed peacefully just after her daughter arrived. It should have been a beautiful moment, but it cracked something in me. I remember crying in my car. Not because she died, but because I couldn't feel anything about it. I felt numb, empty, like my soul had turned to paper. That night, I went home and tried to shake it off. I poured a glass of wine, made some frozen pasta, and curled up on the couch. I remember feeling a weird pressure in my chest, not pain exactly, but like someone had wrapped a belt around my lungs and pulled it tight. I thought maybe it was stress or heartburn, but within minutes, things got worse. My vision blurred. My heart was pounding like it wanted to burst out of my chest, and the room spun. I stumbled to the sink to splash water on my face, but my knees buckled, and I hit the floor. I don't remember I don't remember anything after that. Just darkness. Later, the doctors said it was a ruptured brain aneurysm, fast, deadly, and unpredictable. They told me my heart stopped in the ambulance. I was clinically dead for nearly 8 minutes. What happened during those 8 minutes would change my life forever. No more than that. It would change how I understood life itself, and what it even means to be alive. I didn't just leave my body. I left everything I thought I knew, everything I thought was real. And what I saw, what I felt, it was more vivid, more powerful, more terrifying and beautiful than anything I could have imagined. And that's where my story really begins. At first, it felt like nothing. Not sleeping, not unconsciousness, just nothing. There was no pain, no noise, no movement. It was like everything shut off all at once, like someone hit a switch and the world vanished. But somehow I was still aware. I couldn't see or hear, but I knew I existed. I knew I had left something behind. Then slowly, something changed. I became aware of my body. But from the outside, I could see it. I could see myself lying on a stretcher in the back of an ambulance. My eyes were closed, mouth slightly open. EMTs were leaning over me, shouting things I couldn't hear, jabbing my chest, pushing hard on it, again and again. I wasn't inside that body anymore. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't panicking. I was just watching. And then I began to float. Not up like in the movies. It was more like drifting backward, gently, as if I were being carried on invisible water. The world around me began to fade. First the lights in the ambulance, then the sound of the sirens, then everything else. What remained was stillness, a thick, endless stillness, that wrapped around me like a heavy blanket. I moved into darkness. Not blackness like a room with the lights off, but a darkness that had depth to it. It felt ancient, silent, almost alive. It wasn't frightening though. It was peaceful in a way I can't describe. The kind of peace that makes you want to stay. Because for the first time in your life, you're not anxious or tired or thinking about what's next. You just are. I didn't know where I was going, and I didn't care. I wasn't thinking about my job, or my family, or even my own death. I felt completely detached from everything, and yet I was still me, more than ever maybe. Then something shifted in that darkness. A faint glow appeared ahead of me. At first it looked like a soft candle, far in the distance, but it grew, and it wasn't just light. It was pulling me, and I knew without anyone telling me that I was about to step into something much bigger than death. The light wasn't just bright, it was alive. As I drifted closer, it grew stronger, but not in a way that hurt my eye. It felt like it wasn't shining on me. It was shining through me, into every part of who I was. It knew me. That's the only way I can say it. The light knew everything about me, and somehow loved me anyway. And then I felt it, a presence. I didn't see a figure at first, just the overwhelming sense that someone was there. Not just someone who had always been there. It was like stepping into the arms of a parent I'd never met, but had somehow always known. I didn't feel judged. I didn't feel ashamed. I felt seen, completely, deeply, fully, and totally loved. Then the light shifted, and he appeared. It was Jesus, but not like in paintings or the pictures you see in churches. He didn't look ordinary. He was radiant, like glory wrapped in form. His eyes, they didn't just look at me. They read me. I felt his gaze go through my soul like warm waves. He wasn't shining because of the light. He was the light. And when he smiled, I broke. I didn't even realize I had tears until they were flowing, but they weren't sad tears. They were tears of relief, of homecoming, of knowing that everything I'd been searching for my whole life had always been pointing back to him. He stepped closer, and I didn't hear his voice with my ears. It entered directly into my heart. He said gently, "Jenna, I've been waiting for you." I couldn't speak. I had 1,000 questions and none at all. I just stood there in his presence, overwhelmed by peace, by joy, by something far beyond human understanding. It felt like every wound I'd ever carried, emotional, spiritual, even physical, was being healed just by being near him. I thought he was going to take me with him. I would have gone without a single hesitation. But then he said, "I have something to show you." His expression grew serious, not angry, not sad, but urgent. "This is why you came." The light around us shifted again, and suddenly I could feel we were moving, not walking, not flying, but being carried somewhere beyond time. I looked down and realized I didn't have a body anymore. I was all spirit, all awareness, and I was completely safe. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something far greater than I had ever imagined. The moment Jesus said, "I have something to show you," the atmosphere changed. It was like a curtain being pulled back. 1 second I was standing in light, and the next I was looking at the world, but not the world I knew. Everything looked the same, yet completely different. I was hovering over what seemed to be earth, but it was veiled in layers I'd never seen before. Then the veil lifted. Beneath the surface of everyday life, I saw the spiritual realm. It was layered into everything. People, buildings, cities, even nature. Nothing was untouched. It wasn't like seeing ghosts or shadows. It was deeper than that. Everything physical was surrounded by a spiritual glow, or in some cases, a shadow. I saw angels, not soft, floating creatures, but massive beings of light and power. Some were stationed at street corners, offices, and homes. Others were in motion, carrying out missions I couldn't comprehend. They were brilliant and filled with love, but also full of authority. They weren't there to be cute. They were warriors. And I saw dark forces too. These were not cartoon devils. They were cold, intelligent, and subtle. They whispered lies into the ears of the living. They attached themselves to wounds, trauma, bitterness, pride. I saw them lingering around people, scrolling through their phones, whispering worthlessness, feeding anger, fueling comparison. Some people were entirely unaware, walking through life with these dark presences clinging to them like invisible chains. Then I saw something else: prayer. Every time someone prayed sincerely, even just a short cry like "Help me, God," I saw light shoot up like a flare. Angels responded instantly. I could see people who looked completely alone, suddenly surrounded by divine reinforcements, simply because they prayed. It shook me. How many times had I prayed and thought nothing was happening? The truth was, it was always happening. I just couldn't see it. Then I saw churches, not just buildings but glowing hubs of spiritual power. Some were bursting with light, while others were dim. The difference wasn't in their size or popularity. It was in their surrender. Where people were truly worshiping, the light was almost blind. Where it had become a performance or tradition, the glow was faint. Jesus said, "This world is not what it seems. Everything visible is influenced by what is invisible." Few understand this, but all are affected. I looked down again and saw crowds of people walking with headphones in, glued to their screens, chasing status, or money, or validation, completely unaware of the reality around them. They weren't evil, they were distracted, and in their distraction, darkness crept in unnoticed. Then he looked at me. "This is why truth matters. This is why I came to tear the veil." I couldn't speak. All I could do was watch and weep, not from fear, but from the heartbreak of knowing how close people were to the truth and how easily they missed it. After the veil was lifted, I was pulled into a deeper layer of understanding, not outward, but inward. It was as if my attention turned from the world to my very essence. Jesus didn't speak this time with words. The truth just poured into me like warm light. I understood things I had never even questioned before. I saw what the soul really is. It wasn't an abstract idea or some invisible energy. It was me, but pure. It was the core of who I am without the noise, without the masks I wear in the world. The soul is eternal. It doesn't begin when the body does, and it doesn't end when the body stops. It comes from God, directly. It carries His breath, His fingerprint. I was shown how every soul is deeply connected, not in a vague, mystical sense, but in a very real spiritual network, like a tapestry. Each soul is a thread. When one suffers, it affects the others. When one loves, it strengthens the whole. I saw how kindness echoed through generations, how bitterness, too, left ripples behind. Then came a moment that shook me. I saw myself standing in front of people from my past. Some I had hurt, some I had ignored, some I had judged, and I felt what they felt, not as punishment, but as revelation. I understood the weight of every careless word, every missed opportunity to love, not in a condemning way, but like a light showing every crack in a vase. And then I saw people who had loved me when I didn't deserve it. Teachers, strangers, friends who prayed for me silently. Their light had carried me further than I knew. I wept. The soul remembers everything that matters. Nothing done in love is ever wasted. Jesus finally spoke. Every soul is sacred. Every soul is seen. There was a pause. The world teaches people to chase image, talent, status, but none of that touches the soul. I see the heart. I love the truth of who you are. I looked at myself, not with human eyes, but with His eyes. And for the first time, I loved what I saw, not because it was perfect, but because it was made by Him. That's when I knew, we are not bodies with souls. We are souls with bodies, and that changes everything. The light that had warmed me began to shift. Still love, but now it carried a weight of sorrow. I felt it before I saw anything. Jesus turned to me, and though His expression was full of compassion, there was pain in His eyes. "Now I must show you what happens," He said, "when a soul rejects the truth." We moved, not by walking, but through thought. Instantly, I was in a space I can only describe as heavy, not fiery or violent, like I'd imagined hell would be. No demons, no tormenting scream, just a suffocating emptiness, a sorrow so deep it pressed against my very being. All around me were souls, countless, drifting, alone. Some cried out, some muttered to themselves in confusion, some didn't seem to realize they had died. But all of them had one thing in common. They had turned away from the light, not just once, but over and over, until they couldn't see it anymore. They weren't condemned by God. They had chosen this distance. Again and again, he had called, knocked, whispered, but they had closed their hearts, and now they wandered, still searching for truth, but refusing to acknowledge it when it came. One soul stood out to me, a woman. She looked like she was in her 30s, though time didn't seem to matter here. Her face was twisted in both anger and heart. She screamed, "Why didn't anyone tell me?" over and over. But I saw her life. She had been told many times. She'd mocked it, laughed, walked away. I wept for her. Then I felt Jesus beside me. He wasn't angry, he didn't gloat, he was grieving. And in that moment, I understood the deep pain of God's broken heart, not for rules broken, but for relationships refused. This, he said, was never my desire, but love must allow choice. He looked at me and there was urgency in his tone. Warn them, Jenna. Tell them I am real. I am in love, but I will not force them. Time is short, and many are drifting further into the dark. We left that place, but the feeling stayed with me. It still does. Some souls aren't burning. They're numb. They're living empty lives. Even now, before death, they chase pleasure, fame, money, or distraction, trying to quiet the ache only truth can heal. But the soul knows, and eventually it remembers what it was made for. Jesus and I stood in what looked like the center of eternity. There was no sky, no ground, just presence. Around us, reality shimmered like a living current. Everything felt more real than anything I had ever known on earth. Then I noticed something ahead. Two paths stretching before me. One path pulsed with light. It felt alive. Warmth, joy, and peace flowed from it. Souls walked this path with open faces, some weeping with joy, others singing without sound, their hearts wide open to something far greater than themselves. They radiated love. They were going home. The other path was dim, not pitch black, but gray and colorless. The air around it felt heavy. Souls walked it too, but they were hunched over, some dragging chains I couldn't see, only feel. A few looked confused, others angry. Some stared blankly ahead, as if resigned to their fate. This path led to separation, not punishment, but distance from love, from truth, from the source. I turned to Jesus. He didn't speak right away. He simply looked at me. And again, his eyes held that mixture of fierce love and deep sorrow. "These are the choices every soul makes," he said gently, not once, but over and over. "Every act of love, every moment of humility and surrender, leads toward union. Every act of pride, hatred, or indifference turns the soul away." He paused. "I don't send people to the path of separation. They choose it. Some won't look at me. Even now, they reject the very love they were made from." I watched both paths, stunned by the simplicity and weight of it all. It wasn't about religion or rituals. It was about the heart, the choice to receive love and live in it, or to reject it and walk alone. Then Jesus showed me what happens at the moment of death for every soul. I saw people crossing from life into spirit. Some were surrounded by light, instantly welcomed by angels and loved ones. Others hesitated. Some ran from the light. One man I saw trembled in terror, not because Jesus was angry, but because his soul had become a stranger to truth. He couldn't accept love because he had rejected it for so long. "The soul remembers," Jesus said. "It remembers where it came from, and it chooses." He reached out and touched my heart. In that moment, I felt both paths in my very being. One felt like surrender, peace, restoration. The other was resistance, ego, isolation. "You must tell them," he said. "So many believe they have time, but time runs out, and the soul will stand before me, not in fear, but in truth." I looked down the path of light again. I saw children dancing, elderly saints laughing like little kids, people of all races, languages, and backgrounds united in perfect love. No competition, no striving, just union. And I knew, that's what we were created for. That's where every soul belongs. But the choice is always ours. The next thing I felt was force, a violent pull.
It was like being yanked from a warm ocean into cold air. Suddenly, I was slammed back into my body, my chest burned, my lungs screamed, I heard shouting, metal clanging, feet scrambling. I gasped so hard it felt like knives in my ribs. I was alive. The bright lights of the ER cut into my eyes. My body was trembling. Cold pads were stuck to my chest. And someone was yelling, "She's back." But all I could do was cry. Not from pain, not even from fear. I cried because I remembered. I remembered where I had just been, who I had just been with, what I had just seen, the beauty, the clarity, the perfect love. I felt like it had all been ripped away in an instant. I had tasted heaven. And now I was back inside a frail, aching body, surrounded by chaos. Nurses rushed around me, machines beeped. I felt hands pressing on me, checking my pulse. Shining lights in my eyes. One of them asked me to blink twice if I could hear her. I blinked, but inside, I was falling apart. I wanted to scream. I saw him. I saw Jesus, but my throat wouldn't work. I could only sob. It wasn't the kind of crying you can control. It poured out of me, like something broken open. No one in the room knew what had just happened. To them, I had coded and come back, but to me, I had left this world. I had stepped outside time. I had seen eternity, and it was real. More real than the people touching me, more real than the sound of monitors, or the chill of the hospital blanket. Something deep inside me knew I could never go back to being the same. This world, this life, it suddenly felt so temporary. Like paper. I'd been to the edge, I'd seen the other side, and now, somehow I had to learn to live again, knowing what I knew. The days that followed were harder than I expected. Not because of the physical recovery, but because of the silence. Every time I opened my mouth to speak about what I saw, something stopped me. I tried to explain it once. To a young doctor who was checking my vitals. I said, "I think I left my body. I saw something. I saw him." He smiled politely, but didn't look up from his clipboard. "That's pretty normal," he said. "Many people report vivid hallucinations during cardiac arrest. It's the brain's way of coping with trauma." I wanted to scream, but how do you argue with someone who wasn't there? I tried again with a close friend who came to visit me. I told her pieces about the light, the voice, the visions. Her expression grew awkward. She nodded slowly, like she didn't want to hurt me. Later that night she texted, "Maybe it was just a powerful dream. I'm glad you're okay though. A dream. No dream ever changed you at the root of your being." Still, doubt crept in, quiet, sneaky. Was I crazy? Did my brain make it all up? Had I imagined Jesus, the light, the veil? But then I'd remember the clarity in his voice, the way I felt when he looked at me, the truth that rang deeper than any human language. You can't invent that kind of peace. I spent nights staring at the ceiling in the hospital, praying silently. If this was real, God, please show me what to do. I was afraid people would think I'd lost my mind, but I also knew I couldn't bury this forever. There was a reason I was brought back, and if I stayed quiet, I might miss the very purpose of my second chance. A few nights after I returned home from the hospital, I had a dream. So vivid it left me sitting straight up in bed, gasping. In the dream, I was standing in the same realm I had seen before. Pure light stretching endlessly, and the presence of Jesus just ahead. He wasn't speaking at first, just looking at me with the same piercing love I remembered. Then his voice came, clear and firm. "Jenna, speak, even if they laugh." I trembled, "But they don't believe me. They think I'm crazy." They didn't believe me either, he said, "but the truth must still be spoken." His eyes softened. "Your story is not just yours, it's a lifeline for someone else." When I woke up, my pillow was wet with tears, not of fear but of surrender. That morning, I pulled out an old notebook from my bedside drawer. I started writing, not polishing, not editing, just pouring it out exactly as I remembered it. Page after page, I wrote about the veil I saw, the soul's wandering, the voice that told me the soul was eternal. I wrote about the choice every person must make, union or separation. It didn't feel like a journal. It felt like obedience. I didn't tell anyone at first. It was still too raw, too sacred. But the more I wrote, the more I felt the weight lift off my chest. It was like something divine was pouring through me, guiding my hand. Eventually, I felt a gentle nudge inside. Record your voice, speak it aloud. I started with voice notes on my phone. Then I mustered the courage to record a short video, just me in my kitchen, nervously telling part of what happened. I uploaded it to a small social media page I rarely used. I didn't care if it went viral. I just knew I had to be faithful. And somehow, deep down, I sensed the story was only beginning. A few days after posting my first video, I almost deleted it. The nerves were unbearable. Every time my phone buzzed, I feared it was a message calling me delusional or unstable. Instead, something unexpected happened. The very first comment came from a woman in Ohio who said, "I saw something just like this when I died, giving birth in 1998. You just put into words what I've never been able to explain." That one comment steadied my hand. Then came another message from a man in India who'd survived a near fatal accident and had seen the veil and the pulling light. He said, "I never told anyone. Thank you for confirming I'm not alone." I couldn't believe what I was reading. These weren't trolls or random internet wanderers. These were real people, strangers across the world, echoing parts of my story that I hadn't even made public yet. And then came the encounters in person. At a grocery store checkout, a woman in front of me turned around and said, "I don't know why I feel like I need to tell you this, but I believe in divine appointments. God says keep sharing." I hadn't said a word to her. Another time, I was sitting at a coffee shop scribbling in my notebook, when a man sitting nearby looked over and asked, "Writing something important?" When I hesitated, he smiled gently and said, "You should. People need the truth now more than ever." He walked away before I could even reply. Little confirmations, little nudges, but each one felt like a direct line from heaven. Eventually, I was invited to speak at a small women's group at a local church, just 10 people. I was terrified, but when I spoke, I saw tears, nods, and even gasps. One woman whispered afterward, "I dreamed that exact same scene with the 2 paths." I realized then, I didn't have to convince the whole world. I only needed to reach the ones who were meant to hear. God would handle the rest. I don't know who you are or what led you to watch or read this. Maybe you're curious. Maybe you've always wondered what happens after we die. Or maybe you've lost someone and you're aching for answers. I get it. I've been there. And after everything I've seen, everything I've felt, I can't stay silent. I have to tell you the truth. This life we live, it's not all there is. Behind every moment, behind every breath, there's something eternal. When my soul left my body, I didn't fade to black. I woke up to something more real than anything I had ever touched or known. And what I saw, it changed everything. There is a spiritual realm, and it's not some fantasy or metaphor. It's real. And it's watching us even now. There are forces of good and evil, light and deception. There's a veil over this world, but once it's lifted, nothing is ever the same again. I was shown what the soul truly is. A spark of God, designed for eternity, aching to return home. But I was also shown what happens when we reject that truth. I saw lost souls, wandering, confused, disconnected from the source of love and life. They had made their choices, just like we're all making ours every day, not always with big decisions, sometimes just with small quiet rejections. Not now, maybe later. I'm too busy. Friend, I beg you, don't wait. Eternity isn't somewhere far off in the future. It's already happening. The soul doesn't suddenly become eternal at death. It always was. You are already living forever. The question is, where and with whom will you spend it? Jesus isn't a myth. He isn't a symbol. He's real. He is the light I encountered, the love that wrapped around me like fire and water all at once. He didn't shame me. He didn't scold me. He just loved me, and he showed me how far I'd drifted. And he's doing the same for you right now, even through these words. This world is filled with noise, distractions, endless scrolling, and shallow comforts, but your soul knows when it hears the truth. So listen, you are not your failures, you are not your past, you are not too late. You are deeply known, you are eternally valuable, and you are being called. Please don't shrug this off, please don't wait for another video, another dream, another tragedy to wake you up. Jesus is calling. You can speak to him right now, not with fancy words, just from the heart. Just say, Jesus, I want to know you, show me you're real, and wait, he will answer. I saw what's waiting on the other side. I saw love like I'd never known, and I saw the pain of those who had missed it. Don't miss it, don't gamble forever, don't wait, eternity is already happening.